we asked a whole bunch of experts, what is the number, I guess in this case, the top 13 reasons in terms of building a successful community around your brand. Number 1, 2, and 3 is probably a poster boy for how much all these different elements have to come together. It's got to be a great customer experience. It has to be a great conversation-worthy idea, and it's got to have a clear, objective kind of value statement for what you're trying to achieve. Language, content, outreach. I'll give you 3 simple rules of thumb. For a language standpoint and the tone that you want to get your brand across, if you wouldn't say it in real life to a friend, don't say it on the social web. And I see way too many corporate blogs that pass as sanitized press releases, and not surprisingly, nobody talks about them. When's the last time you've actually gone home and said, honey, let's grab the kids. I've seen this amazing piece of POS or this amazing press release. It doesn't happen. On the social web, it does, however, happen. However, it's served up in a much different tone. Content is king. We just posted last week, we came across the research that says the average lifespan of a tweet is 12 minutes. The average lifespan of a Facebook post is about 80 minutes. So if you're not constantly out there, at least, to the frequency levels that we mentioned in this case, then you're probably not relevant to the grand majority of people. And so there are tricks of the trade in terms of being efficient about doing this. Certainly if you're an entrepreneur, that can consume your life. But having said that, you have to be out there frequently enough to be relevant. And then finally, at the end of the day, as much as Facebook would love us to believe that this is a mass scale game and that we can all reach 100,000 followers very, very easily, really this is an intimacy game. Trying to find 1,000 or, depending on how big of a brand you are, 10,000 or 100 fans that truly, truly care about your brand is probably the most important thing you can do. Because if you do it right with those people, they'll do the heavy lifting for you to actually outreach to their, crazy amount of connected communities that are associated with them. And, we have an archetype in our book. I know some people try to cut down who these special influencers are. We have our own kind of proprietary criteria, and it goes based on adoption curve. They're the tastemakers and trend spotters that once you've launched, they've probably moved on to something else. Opinion leaders and experts are your credibility. You probably don't have the mass scale on your side, and yet, these people can magically convince Eskimos to buy ice. And then finally, when you launch, after you've launched something, social ringleaders and celebrities play a big role in terms of creating this magnetic allure of whatever you're doing online. And we actually did a survey, and we found out, from a variety of different places, people are getting their communities to join them. And not surprisingly, I saw number 1, employees. If you don't have your employees mobilized and happy about what you're doing first, how are you going to expect your customers to get mobilized by it? And why do people join your communities? The top 3 I've highlighted. As much as you could be a great brand and have great features, and you maybe produce a lot of great incentives that create some artificial kind of connection to your brand, humans are hardwired social animals. We love to socialize with other people. So in as much as your brand can create connections between people, create a shared customer community value that people kind of appreciate and go, yeah, you know what, I'm that type of person too, and can create a forum or a bigger stage for your expression and creativity, then you probably got a great community on your hands. Incentives, and as I mentioned, humans do things for strange, irrational reasons. We just had a Canadian election where pretty much the entire electoral curve of what Canada used to historically vote like changed over a course of 4 weeks. And I think some of that maybe had to do with some pretty interesting stuff that people, I'm sure, will evaluate over the next few months. But really, if I could boil it down to 3 things, and we've highlighted the number 1 reason played back to us in each one of these things, people do it for intrinsic reasons. They want to feel good. So how do I identify with, or how do I help this community? They do it for extrinsic reasons. How do I appear to others? How is my ego going to actually be satisfied by, being part of this experience, and recognition by the company was seen as being one of the biggest things there. And then finally, a lot of people go into social media and Facebook and Twitter and go, wow, this is a low-cost channel. I barely have to spend anything. I've got a platform already built for me. This is amazing. And the challenge with that whole approach is, yeah, sure, you may actually get some initial traction, but over time, if people are delivering a lot of value to their business, any kind of reciprocity arrangement in any relationship in the world is two-way, and they'll expect something as a reward over time. And so invitations to events was considered to be one of the number 1 things that people look for. Rules, guidelines, and rituals, all I can say is, for all of you that love the open web and love the libertarian kind of we can do anything, rules are important here. And we looked at about 50 of them for our book, and head and shoulders better than anybody else, Kodak had the best set of rules. And perhaps not surprisingly, they were quite visual and human, so people and employees would actually read them. But they actually did cover off the 6 camps of rules that we thought were important. And so give Kodak a try, or better yet, buy the book and actually find out the 24 different types of rules that most savvy companies should have. From a tools and platform standpoint, there's a lot of tools out there. And what I'd say is, the corporate website is still relevant. Building a brand community, i.e. maybe through awareness, and having prongs to different social networks are all important for these various different reasons. And not surprisingly, they target different audiences, they function a different way, they have their own different handicaps associated with them. So, you need to be in as relevant in as many places as possible on the web. I'm a big Red Sox fan, so I apologize to the New Yorkers that are online. So, but it is, having a home game, so the stuff that you already produce and control, having an away game where, there are probably other communities that people have built that may have some interest to you, and then having your brand stuff live within other people's environments, be it Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And I'd say from a platform standpoint, there are a lot of different providers out there. Certainly EMC was an interesting case study in our book. These are 5 criteria that I would say are the most important criteria when you actually look for a home game or community platform. I'm not going to go in these deeply, but we have profiled in our book the 11 C's of community. And brands and businesses tend to do the top 4 pretty well. The bottom 3, implicitly, suggest that you're giving up a bit of control to your customers. Much less comfortable for brands to do, and not surprisingly, people don't do them as well. And Mike, do you want to go through? Sorry, I might have been cutting into some of your slides, but do you want to talk about some of the community examples?
Sure. And this one here, Foursquare, it's new, but it's the location-based services behind a lot of these are something that's really changing. So the balance that people need to come in from the company point of view is looking for how much actual value can I provide to people without being a pest. Because you don't want to be walking down Queen Street here in Toronto, where it's all cool retail stores, and being bombarded every 5 feet with new offers. Amazon, I think, the really cool thing about Amazon is they designed their whole business based around community. So everything about it makes the community easier. So having badges for things like the reviewers is very, very important. We mentioned Don Mitchell earlier. It's important to people to say, I'm in the top 100 ranked reviewers on it. They're good at collaborative filtering. So if you bought this book, you'd be interested in these 3 books. And that used to be all done by computers, but now it's also enhanced by members of the community putting up their lists. Here are my favorite romantic comedies. These are my favorite books about 19th century political leaders. These are very, very fascinating for it. There's also a lot of really good active discussion forums. Moving into the next one, I think what Intuit is good at is really drawing in great expertise from their community group. One of the people we interviewed for the book, this guy is named Howard. He never did tell us his last name. He's a retired CPA who's made more than 40,000 entries into the TurboTax discussion group. And what he really likes it is when the IRS is wrong, and he can help somebody who is ill-equipped to tell them why they're wrong and help them with their case. And he likes being involved because it keeps him on top of the tax code, and also has learns about part of the tax code he never dealt with as a professional. And so he's providing his expertise into the users, and Intuit, because they've set up a great community, gets that benefit. Another good example is Threadless. And Threadless actually started when their founder, a guy, Jake Nickel, he won a $1,000 contest for a T-shirt design contest. And he put that $1,000 in putting Threadless together. The community is very involved in this. Not only do they actually design the products, but they also then vote on them. So the most popular, the pure meritocracy, having the best designs, go up to the top, and they're the ones that get noticed by the public. And what Threadless does is it just arranges the marketplace, and it takes a cut of the sales. Oh, sorry, Sean, you were going to take.
Yeah, no, I'll take this one because it was a more recent example after we had published the book. But I didn't even know about this one, so this one surprised me. But it's a UK-based company that I guess one of the people associated with O2 has now come out with a co-shared Wikibrand where essentially for getting a discount off your mobile bill, and in some cases a substantial one, you are providing as the customer service, word of mouth for the company gift gaff. And so it is one of these virtuous companies where people become heavily vested in it because the more you do for it, the less you have to pay on mobile. And based on my $1,000 bill on my mobile account last month, it's probably a benefit that people want. And then finally, I would say this is my poster boy for Wikibrands, and it's been that way since the start. But there are about close to 500,000 people that surround the Mozilla Firefox brand that do a crazy amount of marketing and contribution for Firefox. 30% of the code of Firefox is driven by people that aren't paid 1 cent by the company. In fact, in certain countries, I think Chile being one of them, there is not one employee of Firefox, and yet they translate materials, they hold press conferences, they do a ton of stuff on behalf of this brand. And so, not surprisingly, they've got a great culture. They have a great flirt model in place where they've planned this thing out. And executionally, they're brilliant. So those are some examples. From a tool standpoint and just the away game, to use my Boston Red Sox term, much like you do different things in different rooms of your house, so it is in social media. And we're about to have a presentation on the top 200 tools in social media, so we'll probably do a further extrapolation there. But these are the 10 for most businesses I would look at, and depending on who you are, these may flux up or down. But having something like Facebook, a LinkedIn, Twitter, blog, community site, YouTube, email provider, Flickr, Wiki, and SlideShare. I mean, these are kind of the table stakes of being kind of an engaged marketer. And not surprisingly, they play by different rules, they have different benefits, and the metaphor for what room in the house they might occupy are a little bit different as well. I give Kraft special credit here. As much as we love the word-of-mouth business, and when I came out of more of the traditional business, I was known as a word-of-mouth expert. We all know if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, and Kraft has tapped into that on the web. They have pretty much apps and YouTube channels and recipe books that embed into your kind of different software environments. They're masters at this stuff, and so I give them special credit. I also look at Mint.com and some of the stuff they have. Not only are they great to look at and provide a real benefit for their customers, they are everywhere in the right place and relevant when you need it. And so I would certainly look at Mint.com as having a great away game.